On that day, when evening had come, he said to them, "Let us go across to the other side." And leaving the crowd, they took him with them in the boat, just as he was. And other boats were with him. And a great windstorm arose, and the waves were breaking into the boat, so that the boat was already filling. But he was in the stern, asleep on the cushion. And they woke him and said to him, "Teacher, do you not care that we are perishing?" And he awoke and rebuked the wind and said to the sea, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. He said to them, "Why are you so afraid? Have you still no faith?" And they were filled with great fear and said to one another, "Who then is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him?" Hey again, this is Joe Stroup, and I'm the Next Gen pastor at Greystone Presbyterian Church. And I wanted to share a little bit about this story from the Gospel of Mark. And you might have noticed I am in my daughter's bedroom. And I am in here because it's a little noisy out there. And so I am ready to talk about Jesus quieting the storm, even as I seek a little quiet to talk about it. But I wanted to do it a little differently, and I wanted to share a story that brings us into this story a little differently. So let's check this out. This is a book that I really enjoy, and it's called The Storm That Stopped, and it's a true story about who Jesus really is. One day, long ago, Jesus was teaching people by the sea. Soon, some more people arrived, and then others, then more and more, until there were people everywhere. The crowds were just too big. No one could see Jesus, and no one could hear Jesus. "Give me some room. We can't hear back here. Be quiet. I can't see." So Jesus asked his friends, the disciples, to push their boat out into the water. He sat in the boat, and the huge crowd spread out along the beach. Now they could all see and hear Jesus as he told them all about God. When he finished teaching the people, Jesus said to his friends, "Let's go to the other side of the sea." Jesus had finished teaching the crowd, and now he had something to teach his friends. But they didn't know it yet. So they all jumped in the boat with him and set sail across the sea. Jesus was so tired. He'd been teaching the people all day, so he lay down in the back of the boat and fell fast asleep. It was a quiet evening. The water gently lapped against the boat, and the sun slowly set in the sky. Jesus was sleeping. The disciples were quietly talking. Then all of a sudden, they were in the middle of the biggest, loudest, scariest, most ginormous storm you could imagine. The wind blew hard, the waves grew huge, and water poured into the boat. But Jesus was asleep. The wind blew harder, the waves grew huger, the water filled the boat, but Jesus was still asleep. "Jesus, wake up, we're drowning. Don't you care?" What a silly thing to say to Jesus. Of course he cared. He loved his friends so much that one day he was going to die for them. Jesus stood up in the boat. The wind was still blowing. The waves were bigger than ever. The water was pouring into the boat quicker than the disciples could tip it out again. The boat was sinking. But then Jesus did something amazing. He didn't help his friends pour the water out of the boat. He didn't help them try to row back to land. Jesus simply spoke. But he didn't speak to the disciples. He spoke to the storm, to the wind, and to the waves. "Quiet, be still." Just 3 little words, and the storm stopped. Right away, at that very moment, the sea was quiet, still, and calm. Then Jesus looked at his friends. "Why are you so afraid? Do you still not trust me?" But they were terrified, and they asked each other, "Who is this? Even the waves and the wind do what he says." This is what Jesus wanted to teach them. He wanted them to know who he really is. The disciples already knew a lot about God from his special book. They knew that God made everything. He made the world. He made the sun and the moon and the stars, and he made the sea and the wind as well. They knew that only God can tell the sea what to do, that only God can tell the wind when to blow or the waves when to crash. Only God can do these things. But the disciples had just seen Jesus do the same things God can do. So what is the answer to their question? Who is Jesus? Jesus is God. So what I love about this story is the fact that as the disciples encounter this incredible storm, as they are faced beyond their abilities, including seasoned fishermen who would know these waters well, as they face death, as they face fear, and they see Jesus move in a way they can't explain, they cannot understand, that blows their minds, there's a storm inside of them as well. The anxiety, the fear that this person who they are with is more than just a good teacher. It fills them with a whole nother storm. And we're kind of left with that fear and that trembling that they're experiencing. As they come away, seeing how Jesus has the power to calm an incredibly powerful storm, to save their lives with just a word. They don't know what to do with him. And their fear is very real. As people who live in stormy times, as people who have storms inside of us, fears and uncertainties and just things being jumbled, that's something that we can totally understand. But Jesus is the one who has incredible power because he is the Son of God. He who could calm the storm can calm the storm inside of us, can bring us peace and freedom and hope. And that's why we can turn to him, because he's strong enough, he's good enough. And when we turn to him in trust, we can know peace in our big, scary outside circumstances and in the ones that are inside of us ourselves. So in these times, my encouragement to you is, do you trust him? Do you believe and turn to him to be your source of peace? Do you believe that he is strong enough to bring you that peace? And can you surrender the storms that you're experiencing in your life right now? That's my prayer and my hope for us. I'll see you next week.